Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello and welcome to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and today is a topic that I've been wanting to do for a really long time because I have felt this way about emotional eating, emotional overeating, and so many of the women I work with feel the same. And today we're going to be talking about emotional overeating as an addiction and detoxing old patterns to make room for healing. This is such an important topic because I think it can feel really edgy to identify as an addict. I want to share this episode today because it's really eye-opening and it's really freeing when you start to realize that there's such similarities between food addiction and other types of addiction. Often when we hear the word addiction, we often think of substances, right? Like we think of alcohol, drugs, cigarettes. Society and culture has almost allowed those kind of substances to fall under the addict umbrella. And food doesn't always fall under it in the same vein. But just like other addictions, emotional overeating and binging can function in so much of the same way. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the food. The emotional overeating, binging, it's really not about food. It's about what food represents. It's what the act of eating represents, right? It represents comfort, escape, release, resolution, control, right? It's a way to soothe pain. It's a way to distract yourself from uncomfortable feelings. And just like with other addictions, emotional eating can create a loop that's really, really hard to break. You eat to feel better. You get that temporary relief. You trigger your dopamine reward system, the pituitary gland, right? You end up impacting these hormones that have to do with reward. And there's guilt, there's shame. And there's the cycle that starts over and over again, right? There's the negotiation. There's the, I'm never going to do this again. There's the feeling terrible. There's the resolve. And then there's the cycle. And so today we're going to talk about why that happens and what it looks like to be an emotional eating addict, so to speak, and how to withdraw and detox from these patterns to make room for healing. So to understand emotional overeating and binging as an addiction, let's take a closer look at the behaviors that actually define addiction, because I think that by understanding that addiction isn't just about the substance, it's about the compulsive need to seek relief or reward, even when it's causing harm. You're going to see that there really are not many differences between addiction from substances and addiction from food. And in both of the instances, it's about using something external to fill an internal void. So here are a few behaviors that we see in addiction that can translate directly to food. So the first one is seeking the fix, right? So whether it's a drink, a drug, a pint of ice cream, a bag of chips, a pizza, right? Addicts often seek out their substance of choice for quick relief, for quick resolution. And so for emotional overeaters and bingers, food becomes that fix. So after a stressful day, like a fight with a loved one, a wave of boredom, maybe something that feels unresolved, something at work or something just in general, the first instinct is to reach for something that promises this immediate comfort. Right? Even just the act of putting hand to mouth with food, that can be part of the ritual of the addiction of emotional overeating. The second is hiding or secrecy. So addictive behaviors often happen in secret because of the shame and because of the guilt that's tied to them. And I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients, even myself, who, admitted to eating in private, buying food and at a gas station and sitting in their car and eating it by themselves, the whole thing, hiding wrappers in the bottom of the trash or underneath their bed, or sneaking food late at night when no one's around. I've done those things myself, and I know my clients have done, and the women I work with also have done those things as well too. The third behavior that we see in addiction that can translate directly to food is loss of control. So addiction is characterized by feeling out of control. Like the behavior, it's running your life instead of the other way around. So for emotional overeaters, this might look like planning to have, just one muffin, just one cookie, just one piece of chocolate, and then eating the whole thing. Or telling yourself, this is the last time, again, bargaining with yourself, just, hitting some sort of like rock bottom, but then a couple of days later, you find yourself repeating the same pattern, over and over again, or even the next day. Right. And then, another thing could be like feeling like the voices in your head are so intrusive and they're taking over your brain. Like you're not the one that's in control of your brain. Instead, it's these intrusive thoughts that are in control. And then the last common behavior that we see in emotional overeating, that we see in other substance addiction, is the cycle of guilt and shame, right? So after the high comes the crash. Addicts often feel guilt, regret, a lot of self-loathing after indulging in their behavior. And the same is true for emotional eating, right? It's like, it almost feels like we are taken over by some force outside of ourselves, do the behavior, and then afterwards the crash comes. And this guilt can lead to perpetuating the cycle, more overeating to numb those feelings. And again, it perpetuates the cycle in all of the ways. And so recognizing these behaviors is such an important first step because it highlights the deeper work that's needed. Because to heal emotional overeating and the addiction of emotional overeating and binging, it's not about willpower or discipline. You can't strong arm yourself or habit stack your way into it. It's really about neurobiologically rewiring your nervous system, your brain, to break free from these patterns that are keeping you stuck. So how do we start breaking these patterns? And the way that I do it in my sober eating method and in the sober eating mentorship with the women that work with me in those programs is that it begins with the withdrawal period. And I'm going to be honest, this part is not easy because withdrawing from emotional overeating, it's not just about avoiding certain foods. It's about facing the emotions. It's about facing the triggers that you've been using food to escape from. So during this phase, you are going to feel a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of discomfort, right? There's going to be a lot of energy moving through your body. Cravings might spike, emotions that you've been numbing, like stress, sadness, boredom, resentment, insecurity. You're going to start noticing other ways that your addictive, personality might arise, whether that's micromanaging, whether it's obsessing over the scale. All these different things will rise to the surface, and you might feel completely lost or unsure of yourself about how to soothe yourself without food. But that is okay because it's part of the process. This is a really important part of the process. I had one client, she used to turn, and I'm sure this is many people. It's not just one client. I had many clients who would turn to food after arguments with their partner, whether it was romantic, work-related, all these things. And it's your way of finding comfort when things are overwhelming, myself included. And when I did my withdrawal period, and when my clients and the women I work with do their withdrawal period, we have to sit with these emotions. We have to sit with these feelings instead of reaching for food in the same way. But the thing is that I didn't make the food off limits. In the programs that I run and in the ways that I support women, and in the way that I support myself, there's no food that's off limits because food rules are actually attractive to food addicts because they give a false sense of control. We can get addicted to the rules, right? We can like get obsessive and, start bargaining with the rules the same way that we bargained with food. That's why, in my experience over the last 2 decades of working with women to heal, this withdrawal period, we don't make any rules. We don't give in to black and white thinking. We kind of just don't make any rigidity, because addicts like rigidity, because then we can push against the rigidity. So this part, the withdrawal part, could be the hardest part, but it ends up becoming the authentic foundation for healing. It ends up becoming the DNA for the healing. I remember what it felt like to be stuck in the cycle of emotional eating. I tried every diet out there, counting, tracking, restricting, but nothing ever worked. Food controlled my life, my thoughts, and I constantly felt guilty after eating. But once I learned how to heal the emotional triggers behind my eating and trust my body, everything changed. I stopped obsessing over food, the weight started coming off naturally, and I found real freedom in how I ate and lived. So I created the Sober Eating year-long mentorship to help other women experience the same transformation. So you can stop battling with food, you can lose weight without deprivation, and you can feel confident in your body again. In this mentorship, you'll have access to my proven nervous system rewiring method. You'll have access to live coaching with me, weekly accountability, and a community of women who truly understand your journey. You'll also have free access to my signature programs, the Emotional Eating Solution and Decoding Permanent Weight Loss, valued at $2,000. Click the link in the show notes to explore the mentorship today. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be right there with you every step of the way. And like I said, that's what this withdrawal period is really about, teaching your nervous system that food and rules about food isn't going to fix it. It's not the fix. It's about retraining your brain to find comfort and relief in other ways and let go of the need to control something altogether. Because without this withdrawal period, those old emotional patterns, those old mindsets, they're still in control. And if you don't clear out the roots, if you don't clear out kind of that old, that rot, those old rotting belief systems, those old rotting mindsets, you're not going to be able to create space for new, healthier mindsets, behaviors, and belief systems. You're not going to be able to allow a space for that to take root in your mind, body, and soul, and spirit, and nervous system. The withdrawal time also helps you recognize your triggers. So maybe it's a stressful day at work, right? That's triggering you. Maybe it's an offhand comment from your friend. Maybe you're more sensitive than you've admitted to yourself. And sensitivity is a superpower. There's nothing wrong with being sensitive. I know a lot of sensitive, high emotionally intelligent people struggle with addiction because we're sensitive and maybe we don't know how to support ourselves and our sensitivities. And so when we're in this withdrawal period, you start to connect with yourself more. You start to notice those triggers. You start to understand them. You start to, become aware. And awareness is such an amazing step because then you could start to meet your own needs in ways that don't involve substances and food and Band-Aids and things that cause you harm on many different levels, physiologically, emotionally, mentally. And I always just want to remind people and, I reminded myself about this all the time, and you'll see this firsthand, but healing happens in layers. And withdrawal is just the first layer. But it's a crucial layer because it's the foundation for everything else. While it might feel uncomfortable in the moment, it is what's going to give you the peace in the end. And so what does life look like after the withdrawal period. Yeah, so let's talk about so there's the withdrawal period. In my programs, it's about a 30-day withdrawal period. But for me, after the withdrawal period, this is where things get really exciting, because the transformation, the healing from emotional overeating and binging, it's not just about breaking a habit. It's about stepping into a completely new version of yourself. It's upgrading your identity. It's upgrading your self-value. It's upgrading your belief. And let me tell you, that version of you, she's not going to be perfect. And when emotional overeating starts to lose its grip, something incredible happens. You begin to see yourself in a completely new light. You start to realize that food doesn't have to be your go-to for comfort. It doesn't have to be your go-to for control. It doesn't have to be your escape. And here's the best part, is that when you choose to actually indulge in quote unquote indulgent foods, or foods that you might have considered off limits in the past, you realize there's nothing that's not even a real thing. And you're not even eating these foods from a place of reaction or desperation. You're eating these foods with intention, with attention, with agency, from a place of empowerment. And even beyond that, there are deeper identity shifts that happen that can truly, truly, completely transform how you live your life. So let me walk you through a few of them, along with some real world examples. Okay, so the first identity shift that happens is that you become the decision maker in your life, not your cravings. Okay, you become the decision maker. So when emotional overeating is in control, it feels like food is making the decisions for you, right? Like cravings dictate like your eating times, your eating habits, what you eat, when you eat, and sometimes even how you feel about yourself. But after the withdrawal period, you start to reclaim that power over your eating behavior. You realize that, you don't have to follow any eating rules. You're the one in charge. You're the one driving the car. You become the decision maker. So imagine it's like a Friday night. Your friends invite you out for pizza. In the past, you might have gone into this night with the mindset of like, I'm either going to eat the whole entire pizza and feel terrible, or avoid it completely and feel deprived. But now you're approaching it completely differently. You think, do I really want pizza tonight? Will it make me feel good physically, emotionally? Maybe you decide to have a slice or two and enjoy it, fully present with your friends. Maybe you decide you'd rather have something else, right? Like either way, you're in charge. You are in charge. You are the decision maker. The second identity shift that happens is you shift from avoidance to awareness. So before the withdrawal, truthfully, my entire sober eating method, you might have been using food as a way to avoid uncomfortable feelings, whether that was stress, anxiety, boredom, resentment, fear, sadness, right? Any emotion, anger. But when you start to move through this process and emotional overeating loses its grip, you start to sit with those emotions instead of running from them. And you like it, right? Like you realize that is the true alchemy. That's the true tool, right? That's the tool you're looking for, is just sitting with your own feelings. And then you move to the other side and you're where you want to be. So let's say you've had a tough day at work. In the past, you might have immediately reached for food, reached for snacks to numb whatever you were feeling inside. But now you can pause and ask yourself, like, what am I really feeling? What do I really need right now? Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's a vent session with a friend or something, or just like sitting in quiet by yourself. That's my thing. I love just sitting and being in quiet, to be honest. And so the shift from avoidance, using that external substance to avoid and shove under the rug, shifting from avoidance to awareness creates the space for you to process your emotions in a healthy, real way that truly serves you. Okay, the third identity shift is you begin to see food as nourishment and not as a fix. right? Food stops becoming the hero or the villain. It becomes nourishment, a way to fuel your body and enjoy life, not a tool to fix your emotions, right? So for example, picture this. It's a Saturday morning and you're making breakfast. In the past, you might have chosen a meal based on guilt or restriction. Maybe you were like, I'm going to be good. It's going to be low calorie or clean to make up for the night before, right? Or you even think someone else needs to tell you what's a good choice to eat, right? But instead of needing somebody else to tell you what a good choice to eat is, or instead of choosing what to eat based on guilt or restriction, feeling like it has to be right or wrong, you think, what does my body need today? What will feel satisfying? What will feel nourishing? Right? Like maybe it's eggs and avocado toast. Maybe it's pancakes with fruit. Maybe it's just fruit, right? There's no right answer. It's learning to trust yourself. Learning to trust yourself. And that's the next identity shift. It's trusting yourself, trusting your body. When emotional overeating controls your life, you start to feel like your body's the enemy, something you have to fight against or outsmart. But after you withdraw from all these belief systems and mindsets and mind states, you realize that your body, it's not something that you need a rule for. You need a manual to follow. It's not something you need to control. It's something to listen to and to care for, right? It's something that doesn't have to be black and white. Like you can have a desire for something and you can have it and you're not going to be punished. It's not going to be bad. Nothing bad is going to happen to you, and instead of forcing yourself to finish everything on your plate because it feels wasteful or because you're unsure whether you're going to eat again, you start honoring your hunger and fullness cues, right? Instead of avoiding something altogether because it's like not on the plan, you start to listen to your desires and you trust yourself to make self-honoring choices. Right? This trust creates a sense of ease and freedom that's really, really hard to describe unless you experience it. And it's not something that you can just read in a manual or a book. It's really something that you have to experience. And the last thing is you see progress in other areas of your life. So when food is no longer the center of your world, it's like your whole life begins to open up. You have more energy, more mental space, more confidence to pursue the things that really matter to you, to get into relationships, to express yourself, to show love, to receive love, right? Like one client of mine, she found her husband after she stopped emotionally eating. Another one started painting again, a hobby that she'd set aside for years because she was so consumed by dieting, by food obsession, by intrusive thoughts, by obsessing over her weight loss. Another one of my clients found the courage to leave a really toxic job because she finally felt worthy of pursuing something better. So when emotional overeating, binging, food obsession, measuring your self-worth by your weight, when that loses its grip, you stop playing small in your life and you start stepping into the life you're meant to live. And these identity shifts are where the real transformation happens. It's not just about changing what you eat. It is about changing how you see yourself. And so you go from feeling stuck, powerless, overwhelmed, to feeling confident, empowered, and truly connected to your body, your life, your purpose, and your worthiness. And here's the truth, like here's the best part, like this isn't about perfection. This isn't about doing it 100% correctly or having the exact right plan. It's about progress. You don't have to get it right every time. You just have to keep showing up for yourself, trusting that each small step is leading you closer, right? Just keep showing up. Each small step is leading you closer to freedom. All right. So as always, I'm wishing you an amazing, amazing week full of grace, self-compassion. And remember that the journey to healing is not about getting it right every time. It's just about being consistent and being willing to just stay in the game. All right. So if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Please like the video. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, please rate the podcast. Leave us a review. We love to hear from you. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.